We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point, a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this, an alternative world branched off.
Good morning. Welcome to the Wednesday edition of Free Association Radio, FAR. FAR is the acronym. I'm Robert Phoenix, and you are you. Hello there, Barbara Barker in the chat room. Nice to see you. Chat room's a little empty, folks. Come on. Let's fill that thing up. I just checked the ratings for the show, and they're going up. They're going up considerably, which is good. We like that, right? Because it's better for me. It's better for you because when I have better ratings, I can attract better guests and all that good stuff. And more than that, though, we have the ability to coalesce our consciousness in greater numbers, which I think is a really interesting proposition, especially based on where the world is at right now. I'm Robert Phoenix, by the way. I'll be your host for the next 120 minutes, some of which will be devoted to actual personal readings for people, personal astrological readings, which I do here every Wednesday. Didn't do it last week. I had Jolie Evans on. Well, I thought it was great, and we had a little time off. Somebody else got to do the readings, which is good, right? Friday's show is going to be, I think, an epic show. I've already done an hour with James Gilliland, and that happened yesterday with me here in Austin and James, obviously, in Trout Lake, Washington, which is where the i-ching Ranch is. And it was an incredible 60 minutes, and we covered a lot of ground. We talked about what's happening currently with the Earth and the changes the Earth is going through, and also we get into some areas that I think people will find quite interesting. We talk about archons, and I have struggled at times with the definition of what an archon is. If you have followed John Lash or Jay Widener, you'll be familiar with the term archons. And I asked James, how distinct are archons from Orions or Andromedans or reptilians? And essentially, well, listen, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to let you listen to the show. I'm going to let you hear what James has to say. In radio business, that's called a tease. So we get into archons, we get into what's happening with the Earth, and some very interesting anecdotal information about James and his life and how he got to being the curator of the i-ching Ranch, which is a portal. And if you want to get some information about i-ching before the show, I highly recommend it, although it's not necessarily necessary. But you can go to that they have posted, and it's a Sean Hannity Fox News piece. I guess Fox was doing a little special on conspiracy theories. So they went out to ECETI to check out the UFO and alien conspiracy angle, and they went in cynical and jaundiced, but they wound up leaving quite transformed as a result of the time spent there. So check out eceti.org, and you can find that video on their website. So what we're going to do today is we're going to get into Mars and the Mars transition into Gemini. What I'm going to do right now is I'm going to play just a little piece of music here. I'm going to take care of some business on the studio front, and let's make this about a 3-minute break. And when I get back, I'll get into the Mars transit and the stellium in Gemini. This is Michael Lee Hill, testing 1, 2, 3. I'll see you in 3 minutes and 6 seconds. All right, that was Michael Lee Hill, testing 1, 2, 3, and that's an amazing track, actually. I had Michael claims that he is the son of Eric Clapton. I don't like to use the word illegitimate. Like blood is blood. You're a son. You're a son. Michael claims to be the son of Eric Clapton, and listening to that, how can you doubt it? Really, I actually had somebody send me an email one time and wanted to know more about that track and more about Michael, and they were a guitar player. They are a guitar player, and they listened to it, and they said that's a track that very few people could actually play based on the fretwork. on that tune. So there you go. Let the music be the judge. Speaking of music, Ray Manzarek just passed away. Turn out the lights. I loved Ray. Whenever there's tons of post-Doors documentaries out there, and the guy that always has the most insightful and interesting things to say is Manzarek, or was Manzarek. He's gone now, and he'll be missed. I really enjoyed listening to Ray. And if you have Netflix, I think they have a ton of these Eagle Rock documentaries. It's kind of like a behind the music series. It's the making of, and they have various albums. And L.A. Woman, I think, is the one that they have with the Doors. And so you have a lot of interviews with people that were part of the making of the record, all the band members, and also Paul Rothchild. There's a name, huh? Paul Rothchild. Paul Rothchild produced all of Jim Morrison's records, all of them. And Manzarek shows up, and he's brilliant. He plays organ parts from the various songs on L.A. Woman. So Ray Manzarek will definitely be missed. He also did some stellar producing. He produced the first record by a band called X with John Doe and Exene Cervenka. It's called Los Angeles. It's a great record. I'm not sure if he produced the second one, Wild Gift, which I like a lot too, but X is that Los Angeles record it's one of the great punk rock records, American punk rock records, and it's a record that shows the punk rock scene in transition, and there was much more energy at that time shifting from places like New York and London to Los Angeles, and the next iteration of punk, which was hardcore and thrash, came out during that time. This is around 1980. And punk took a much more nihilistic turn. And coincidentally, I stopped listening to a lot of it at the same time. But the first X record is not to be missed. Okay, so it is 12:12. Thank you for being patient as I took care of some business here at the Free Association Radio Studios. So let's just take a quick look at where the planets are right now. We've got the sun at 1 degree. That's in Gemini, so welcome to Gemini. Gemini sun, how fun. May 22nd. Moon at 27 degrees Libra, so it's right at the edge of Libra, going into Scorpio over the course of the next few days, where it will join, actually, at the end of today. It will begin to conjoin Saturn, so there'll be a Moon Saturn conjunction, very, very intense conjunction, the Moon-Saturn conjunction. One of the aspects of the Moon-Saturn conjunction can be depression, because Saturn is dour. It's a dour sign, or doer, however you want to pronounce the word. It is a dour planet, and it is a taciturn planet. Pragmatic is another way to describe the energy of Saturn. And when it hooks up with the Moon, it puts its gravity on top of the feminine and emotional expression of the Moon. So what we have here is the hallmarks of depression, which, by the way, has now grabbed grief as an emotion for the DSM. When we have the conjunction between Saturn and the Moon in the sign of Scorpio, there can be some very deep, very profound emotional change taking place. And when I say emotional change, these could be long-term emotional change and emotional adjustment that happens at a core level. And this energy will be available over the course of the next 2 days. And everything now is stepped up. Everything now is stepped up. Every aspect is stepped up. Every transit is stepped up now. When they hit, we feel it. When they come into our lives, they make, generally speaking, dramatic appearances and sometimes equally dramatic exits. So we're in a time that is heightened in terms of consciousness. And this can be related to, especially this past month, when the sun was in Taurus and aligning with Aldebaran and with Sirius and Alcyone. May is a very powerful month for this. Why do you think May Day exists? Why is May Day so popular? Why is the birth of the Illuminati on May 1st, 1776, happening on May 1st, 1776? It's because there's an alignment with Alcyone, the great central sun, which for many in the esoteric realms is actually the physical residence of what's called heaven. Now, this is not to be confused with the flaming star, which is Pleiades. It's a different location for heaven, but interesting nonetheless. And the Sirius star system, of course, gave us the god Nomo, who influenced the Dogon people and essentially brought culture and science and arts to the Dogon people. The Dogon people, Africa, obviously. So this is why we have the relationship between May 1st, because of the alignment with Aldebaran, and more importantly, Sirius/Alcyone, the great central sun. Now we have a stellium in Gemini, the Sun, and Mercury, Venus, Jupiter. Mars will join the Gemini parade on the 31st of May. You've got to circle this date in your calendar. This is a big, big day. They moved the debut of the movie After Earth, AE, After Earth, which stars Will Smith and Jaden Smith as the father-son duo who returned to Earth after a cataclysm has taken place on Earth, and Earth has been completely evacuated. The only thing that remains are animals, and animals that have reverted to their prehistoric status. So this is what happens through de-evolution or re-evolution, apparently. Tigers get long teeth again. Elephants grow again. This is all because they have to defend themselves against the onslaught of other animals in their environment. Wild, free, dangerous. Anyway, this takes place on May 31st. And they actually moved the debut of the film back into May. It was supposed to debut in June, but it's happening on May 31st. And this is when we have a significant, and I mean a significant stellium. It's when Mars moves into Gemini, and I believe Mercury Mercury goes into Cancer that day. Let's just check the ephemeris just to make sure here. Mercury's at 29 degrees on the 31st. I believe it moves into Gemini later in the day on the 21st, because on the 1st, it's already gone to one. Well, I think it stays. Well, it will stay. Let's see. Let me just do what I should do is I should actually do a chart, because Mars goes into Gemini at 0 degrees on the 1st. Okay. So it's on the 1st where Mars goes into Gemini. And then Mercury is in Cancer at that point in time. But the 29th degree, we've got some interesting angles here on the 31st. The moon is in Aquarius at the anaretic degree of 29, and that's squaring Mars at the anaretic degree of 29 in Taurus. So that should be and then we have the anaretic degree of 29 in Mercury in Gemini. So we have 3 29 degrees, 1 28 degree, and that is the black moon Lilith in Gemini. So when we get to the anaretic degrees, things are tricky because we're dealing with beginnings and endings, and the energy is volatile, and there's a great deal of volatility lining up at that time. Even before then, on the 29th, when we have the moon in Aquarius, well, we're going to have Mercury in Aquarius and Mercury in Gemini, and Venus in Gemini, and Jupiter in Gemini. Mars will still be in Taurus on the 29th, but we're going to have a major stellium with the Sun, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter. That's 4 planets. And then Aquarius brings in more air into the equation. And of course, there's Black Moon Lilith hanging out there at 28 degrees Gemini. So theoretically, we have 5 planets / aspects in Gemini and 1 in Aquarius. Okay, now here's where I take the hard right turn. And I try to be as open as possible when it comes to these things. But I can't help but understand and share with you my perception of the manipulation of reality and as it relates to 2 signs. Now, I'm not saying that Gemini is evil. I'm not saying that Aquarius is evil, all right, because I have an investment in at least one of those signs. I have Chiron in Aquarius, and my 11th house is loaded with planets, so I am, by and large, an Aquarian being. I have Moon in Aquarius, Mercury in Aquarius, Venus in Aquarius. I'm sorry, Moon in Libra, Mercury in Libra, and Venus in Libra, and they're all in the 11th house. So it's air and air, right? I have Neptune in the 11th house flashing to the 12th. So I'm a pretty Aquarian being. So I'm not out to get Aquarius, and I'm not out to get Gemini. However, based on everything that I've read and all the hours of research that I've put into this, I can assure you that Aquarius and Gemini are the 2 signs that show up prominently with social change, chaos, and upheaval. And there's a reason for that, because these energies via the sign and the planet are pushed. They're pushed. Some of it happens because we're simply dealing with the aspects themselves. Another part of it is that it happens because, well, there are people that are aware of what's happening, and they plan and stage events accordingly based on the representation of the signs and planets at any given time. And if you've listened to the show and if you've gone to my blog, I've done extensive work on Aquarius and how Aquarius has been used over and over again throughout history in order to insert a false unity, a false paradigm, a false Aquarian representation of what that energy could be. And so what we get is we get things like socialism and communism. We get social movements that are supposed to promote rights, but really what happens is it creates more division. And that's where we get into Gemini, because what Gemini does is Gemini is into particulates. Gemini slices and dices the matter. Gemini will take things and break them down into their micro components. Sagittarius can be engaged in the act of social justice or social cause. Sagittarius is very freedom-based, but it's very broad. You know, Sagittarius is freedom for all. I mean, the United States, there is some debate in the astrological world or in astrological circles as to the actual chart of the United States of America. I tend to use the Sibley chart. It feels the most right for me as it relates to looking at the United States. And the United States is a Sagittarius rising country. And with Sagittarius rising, what we have is we have a quest for freedom, freedom of speech, freedom to move freely, right? The right to move freely. I mean, all these things that we believe are inalienable are hardwired into the ascendant of the United States. The love of sport, the love of horses, the Kentucky Derby, expansionism, the Wild West, naturalism. These are all very much part of the social dialogue and the social ethnography and topography of this country. Very Sagittarian on the ascendant. Now, Sagittarius deals in really broad philosophical and expansive relationships to these topics that I'm talking about. Gemini does the exact opposite. Gemini breaks down. Gemini likes to see all the various pieces as it relates to the whole. Gemini will get to the whole after it puts together all the puzzle pieces. That's what Gemini does. And so when we see what happens in a thing with a social movement that is supposed to bring us closer together, because obviously some arbitrary third party says that we need to have that experience in our lives regardless of whether or not we want that, somehow they've been granted the moral authority to enforce their philosophy or their perspective or their POV or their law, whatever that is, for the betterment of humanity. That that they have the philosophical perspective and the enlightened purview that they know what's better for everyone. And this is what happens. And when these things occur, some of these social movements that I'm talking about, instead of bringing people together, which is an Aquarian aspect, what happens is that we get chopped further and further apart, and society becomes more and more segmented, which is Gemini. And the thing that exists between those two aspects is Libra, which is this effort to bring everything into balance, some form of balance, right? So this is the air triangle. This is the air trine. It's a very important aspect to understand because air dominates ideas, air dominates the media, air dominates communication, air dominates our relationship to God or gods. Where do they come from? They descend from the skies. Whether they are aliens or fallen angels or cherubs, whatever, they evolve out of the noosphere of air. So we cannot underestimate air as it relates to how it shapes our perceptions, our ideas, our media, and as a result, our culture. Everything starts with air. Everything starts with an idea. Now, as a result of which, we are sacrificing water. We're sacrificing emotion. Clearly, what happened with Angelina Jolie last week is an example of this. Angelina Jolie, by the way, is a Gemini. I don't know if you know that or not, but she is a Gemini. And she, again, is a personification of this segmentation, right? And in this case, the segmentation goes right down into her genetic library. And as a result of finding out that she has the same gene that caused her mother to die of cancer, Angelina Jolie, or whoever Angelina Jolie is, decided to go preemptive and lop off her breasts. Now, this is disturbing on a number of levels. On one level, it's very disturbing because people have invested some form of emotion or perception in that Angelina Jolie is this great mom, right? She adopts all these kids. She stands for kids' rights. She works for UNESCO. She works for UNICEF. She has been portrayed as the universal mother. And when she comes in and removes the organs that connect her on a physical level to nurturing, it's a shock. It's a shock to many, many, many people. And then what happens is that when people get shocked, and we've talked about this before time and again, is that new programs are inserted. It's like initiate the trauma and then insert the new program. So the new program now is to be as proactive as possible to get those pesky breasts right out of the way. Why worry about breast cancer? Just get them removed. And, oh, by the way, you can get some new ones put in, which, quite frankly, might even be better than the ones you had. And if they weren't, well, certainly you can do your very best to get an upgrade, because this is another part of this. And this is a real slippery slope, because now we are invoking transhumanism on kind of a mass level. And watching how there could be this trend towards having, really wonderful cosmetic breasts, wonderful looking cosmetic breasts. This has been done down in Brazil, by the way. Plastic surgery in Brazil is huge. So this is troubling from a transhumanist standpoint, that we're actually having the potential to alter the species, not in a way that is based on personal choice or vanity, but based on fear, based on the fact that there might be a predilection for something to occur. Now, for that thing to occur, a lot of things have to line up. There are a lot of conditions that have to line up in an individual for them to have cancer. And the real crime here is leaving out the environmental relationship to cancer, leaving out the cutting edge research on cancer as a fungus. There's a major dishonor being done to people as a result of this. And then lastly, what we see is science elevated above God in the Angelina Jolie experience, in that there can be no room for grace, no room for redemption, no room for the miraculous, no room for people to have their own will and their own desire to have their own experience and to find ways in which to A, be preventative, or B, treat themselves. What happened with Angelina Jolie is frightening, because science has now climbed to the top of the pyramid. It has displaced God in this. I mean, we've been flirting with this for a very long time, but this is a pretty monumental act. Very symbolic, if you ask me. So now we have this segmentation taking place, which is Gemini, right? Segment. And the thing with Gemini also is it reinforces a certain type of duality that can also look like a certain type of unity. I mean, if you look at the sign of Gemini, if you just look at the symbol, it is two, but the two are theoretically one, theoretically. Now, on a positive note for Gemini, I don't want to hash and bash Gemini completely. Gemini is incredibly curious. It is we learn a great deal about ourselves and our surroundings thanks to Gemini. Gemini plays a huge role in the chart of the United States. The United States has Mercury in Gemini and Uranus in Gemini. They're not conjunct, they're pretty far apart, but it makes us very curious. Right now we've got a nation full of people that are turned on to the internet and researching their butts off and trying to find out what the hell is happening on this planet and how we can do something about it. This is Gemini. It gives us the ability, the curiosity, the innate curiosity to understand how things work. This is where it's empowering us. And it also helps us in terms of sharing information. The internet, even though it's an Aquarian medium, Gemini plays a big role in the internet because this is where journalists are migrating. Blogging is a very Gemini activity. It's an extremely Gemini activity. And Aquarius provides the avenue or the portal for this to take place. So we cannot, just summarily dismiss Gemini and rag on it and say that it's evil. But I will tell you that based on everything that I've seen, I don't want to go down this rabbit hole again. Just go to my website, look up Gemini, go to robertphoenix.com, type in Gemini, and you'll get a bunch of posts that I've really gotten into pretty in depth, ranging from the death of John F. Kennedy, who was a Gemini, to the 9/11 event, which is the Twin Towers, and the evocation of Gemini. The other thing, too, with the Twin Towers, which is interesting, and I didn't really write about this, but from a perspective of the major arcana in Tarot, the Twin Towers represents the number 2. The number 2 in the Tarot, and the number 2 in Tarot is the High Priestess. It's the divine feminine as oracular force. That's what the high priestess is. And what happened was when the Twin Towers were taken down, they decided to erect one tower, right? And the one tower is the number one is the number of the Magus. It is the male principle. So what we had during 9/11 is also the desecration of the feminine, if you want to look at it from that perspective. The annihilation of the number two, which was the high priestess. And now we have the dark Magus rising, the largest phallus on the planet. That's what it'll be when it's all said and done. The One World Trade Center, the largest phallus on the planet, thanks to a very long rod that comes out the end of it. It's pure phallus worship. But they had to demolish the feminine. They had to demolish the intuitive in order to raise the physical, the masculine, the will. Uranus and Aries, the finishing of the One World Trade Center will take place under Uranus and Aries. Now, Building 7 was demolished as well, and that's a whole other symbolic act, symbolic destruction. The number 7 is wisdom. The number 7 is the ability to analyze. And so what we did with the taking down of building number 7 is on a symbolic level. There was we didn't take it down, but when they took it down, there was a symbolic raising of wisdom, the destruction of wisdom. So, and you add the two together, 7 and 2 is 9. 9 is a huge number in terms of esoteric symbolism and etymology. So on the 31st, the sun will be at 9 degrees in Gemini, and then the big planets, Mercury, Venus, and Jupiter will all be within 5 degrees of one another. Mercury at 29, Jupiter 24, Venus at 26, and then we throw in Black Moon Lilith at 28. You've got to keep your eye on the 31st and the 1st of this month. Trust me on this. And then the big one, the big date is going to be really the 1st. I mean, 31st to the 1st, we're talking Friday and Saturday. On the 1st, Mars will go into 0 degrees Gemini. Mars in Gemini is the most restless aspect in all of the zodiac. People who have Mars in Gemini are continually on the move. They are very creative and very innovative people, but they are always pulling apart something that they've created or built. They're never satisfied, ever. So what we have with the 0 degrees Mars on the 1st is an aspect that is about creation and destruction. And it all kind of lines up for these 2 days. And then at that point in time, Black Moon Lilith will be at 29. And Black Moon Lilith actually goes into Cancer, thank God, in June. We're going to have a bit of a respite, but it's going to be at the end of June. June is an incredibly important month. Okay, I'm just going to come right out and say that, because when Jupiter finally moves out of Gemini, and it seems like it's been there forever, when Jupiter finally moves out of Gemini, it will move into Cancer, and it is exalted in Cancer. What we have with Jupiter in Cancer is the rise of the feminine, it is the rise of intuition, it is the nurturing, the nurturing force, the life-giving force that we're all kind of, hanging out and hanging on for right now. Because Jupiter in Gemini has been crazy, absolutely crazy. And Jupiter in Cancer promises to be much more grounded and much more centered in what's important for the survival of the species. It's a very powerful transition. And at the end of June, on the 30th, the sun will be in Cancer, at 8 degrees. Jupiter will be Cancer at 0 degrees. And what's happening then is just a few days later, when we go into July, and we start to hit July 4th, which is obviously the birthday of this country, Jupiter will be at 1 degree, and it will be trining Neptune in Pisces, which is going to be at 5 degrees, and then it's going to be trining Saturn in Scorpio. The real magic happens is when Saturn goes direct, and it goes to, let's see, we got the day. Here's the day. The day that you want to circle on your calendar is the 18th of July. The 18th of July has the potential, and it's a brief window for an emotional reset on a collective level, okay? And what I mean by that is that it will help us redefine what our emotional values are, what's important to us. Now, the flip side of this is that reality, as we know, can be manipulated, or what we perceive to be reality can be manipulated by events. And so if we have an event which grabs our attention, and all of a sudden our emotion, and there's a vast amount of emotion that's available on this day. And the reason why is because the moon will be in Scorpio, the final degrees of Scorpio, the sun will be in Cancer, Mars will be in Cancer 1 degree off of Jupiter, so there's going to be a Mars-Jupiter conjunction, and they're both going to be trining Saturn and Neptune. So this is a really, really powerful time emotionally. And what would be unfortunate is if there was an event which grabbed our attention and then had us refocus our emotions or reset our emotions in a way that would be manipulated. That's the only thing that I can see here based on these aspects for that day. Mercury is in Cancer as well. Venus is in Leo, and Mars by that time again will have moved out of Gemini and into Cancer. So I think this is very important, this period. Very, very, very important. I think that we have the opportunity, especially on the 14th, just as a kind of a lead-in at 0 degrees Mars in Cancer, where we can plant a flag. And a flag, we plant a flag in the ground, which is really going to be symbolic of what we're collectively experiencing, what we're collectively feeling, and what we need. Because as I travel through the internet and through the groups on Facebook and through the website and the show, what I keep getting back from people is that there is a great desire to return to some place that has emotional resonance, that people can latch onto feelings that are congruent with being an organic being here on this planet, that are connected to the life cycle, that are connected to plants, that are connected to harvest, that are connected to feeding, that are connected to food that is alive and not mutated or mediated by some foreign gene. These are the values and these are the feelings that are starting to well up right now. And it is in response to the synthetic assault on our senses. And at some point, people are going to say enough is enough. And I'm not talking about a full-blown revolution with bullets and guns. I'm talking about a full-blown revolution with love and what's right and what's wrong, and how we can simply say, no, I don't accept that because this does not feel congruent with my emotional state and my heart. This does not bring and invoke more love. Now everybody has their own version of that. Okay, so I'm not going to try to compartmentalize that, but everybody's got their own version of that, and it's coming. It's coming, and it won't matter. It really won't matter what your philosophical perspective or political leanings are, because that energy is going to come, and it will be overwhelming in some ways. One of the things that I saw recently was it was a meeting in a township in New Jersey, and it had to do with gun rights and gun laws, and I had never seen this before. Nothing like this. Here you had this buffoon who was running the meeting. He was a councilman or an alderman or whatever they call them in New Jersey, and he was running this.
To see that more
consistent. Oh, what's this? Hold on. Yes. He was running the meeting, and there were questions about the meeting, and there were questions about what they were going to do, and then eventually the people in that town hall all stood up and said the Pledge of Allegiance with a passion and a vigor I had never seen before. And what was interesting about that crowd, you can find the video on YouTube. What was interesting about that crowd was it was a great cross-section of people. There were young, there were old, there were white, there were black. I mean, this was really kind of the vision of America. I mean, it was a melting pot. And they were all standing up for one purpose, one cause, one reason. And this guy who was running this meeting was essentially made irrelevant. And there was one woman, they all stood up in the audience. There was one woman who was one of the council people. She actually stood up and put her hand over her heart and did the same thing. Meanwhile, the rest of the people on that council didn't do a damn thing. They just sat there and they had to take it. So this is in some ways indicative and symbolic of the Cancerian energy that's coming in our direction. It's fascinating to watch what's been happening with the IRS and some of the other scandals that have been brewing. There's another one now that's kind of on the wing. I said on Monday there were four, that there would be five, because 5 is the number of man. And there's one coming now which has to do with Obama essentially telling AFRICOM to stand down. I think was it Smedley Butler, the guy who was running AFRICOM at the time, who was asked to step down after the Petraeus scandal, which, by the way, happened right after Benghazi. He was asked to step down. He essentially said that he could have gotten troops into Benghazi within minutes, okay? He could have got people over there like lickety-split, and he was told to stand down. He was told to stand down, and this is starting to come out now. And he was told to stand down by Obama. And if this comes out and gets even more play than it's already getting, things could get very, very tricky for Mr. Barry Soetoro. And we all know what happens when things get tricky. People do quote-unquote irrational things, or things that can be dangerous. Behavior, reckless behavior, becomes much more of an issue when people are cornered and acting dangerous. Okay, so let me just check in here with the studio and find out if we have anybody waiting online to have some readings done, because this is part of today's show, by the way. You get to have a free mini reading with me, yours truly. We're going to get into some other stuff here, some other symbolic evidence as to what's taking place through the zodiac and in your lives. Let's see what we got here. We got some people waiting. Okay, why don't we do this? Let me do this. Let's go through these first 3 readings here, and then I'm going to read you something which is in alignment with what I've been talking about with the Cancerian energy and the effusive nature of water, and what one community here in the United States has done to plant a flag in the ground and say enough is enough. So let's do these 3 readings, and then that will probably take us up to just after the top of the hour, and then I'll get into some more commentary. Let's go to the 402 area code. Hello there.
Hi.
Hey, thanks for waiting. What's your name?
Hi, my name is Jackie.
Hi, Jackie. Where are you calling from?
Omaha, Nebraska.
Okay. How are things in Omaha?
We're doing okay. Still cold here, which is surprising.
Did you guys get hit with any of these tornadoes or any of the backdraft of this storm?
No, not at all. Not at all. We haven't had any violent weather in a long time. It seems to all be moving south.
Mm. That's probably because Warren Buffett lives in Nebraska, doesn't he?
Yeah, he does. He doesn't live too far from me, actually.
Yeah,
he lives very modestly, which is very surprising.
Well, you're in a safe place. Don't lose that zip code.
Well, I don't live in the nice part anyway. I live kind of on the outskirts.
Oh, that's okay. As long as you're within a 10-mile radius, they won't touch Mr. Buffett. Okay, let's talk about you. Is this the first time you've listened to this show?
No, I've been listening to you for a while, but usually on the playback. I'm never around when you're here, so I'm really excited about this.
Oh, okay. Well, cool.
Because I love your show.
Well, thank you. Well, welcome. Why don't you give me your birth date and let's get started on this.
Okay, my birthday is 9/9/63.
Okay. And 63. Okay, and what time were you born?
8:30 in the evening, p.m.
Okay. 8:30 in the evening. There we go. And where did you drop in?
I was born in Jacksonville, Florida.
Okay. Jacksonville. All right, and let's see. There we go, Jacksonville, Florida. And bang. Okay. Here comes your chart. Now, are you familiar with your chart?
Yes.
Okay. Now, since you're familiar with your chart, let's just do a quick little verification here. I have you as Aries rising, 27 degrees,
yep.
Sun in Virgo, and Moon in Gemini, right?
Yep.
Okay, cool. So where do you want to steer this bus today?
Well, I don't really have anything immediate. I just want to see what you had to say about it. I have a boomerang yod.
Yeah.
With two personal planets at the apex, and my sun is conjunct Pluto. So I just wanted to know what you thought about all that.
Well, the one thing that jumps out at me with your chart is the lack of water. You've got Neptune and in Scorpio, and you've got the true node, and then you have Chiron. In some ways, if you're going to be light on water, I think in some ways that those are actually probably the best planets to be light on water in, if you know what I mean, right? Because
right.
The true node is where you're going to find, your quote-unquote true nature or your true north, and it's in Cancer and it's in the 4th house. So that's actually a really good place for your true node if you're not going to have any water. And then Chiron is going to continue to force you in some ways to uncover more water in your life. And in this case, the water is represented by Pisces. So water equals spirituality and having an unabashed relationship with your own faith. That's what Chiron in Pisces is about. It's people that are closet mystics, or people that have had to, in some ways, keep their faith sort of bound up and unseen from the rest of the world. And a lot of people
that's really interesting.
A lot of people are going through their Chiron return right now. And so you're having a lot of people. I think this is actually a really interesting time for the Chiron Pisces people, because a lot of them are dancing with, a lot of the water that's coming up in the summertime, but also with Neptune and Pisces, which can be, and this happened with me with Chiron and Aquarius. Neptune and Chiron are kind of moving in the same track. So this is actually a really good time for a lot of the Chiron and Pisces people, because they're getting support in some ways to face down their fear of being for lack of a better term, authentically or ostentatiously spiritual. And we actually need more of that. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that you have to have like a televangelist show or something like that, but it's more along the lines of being able to have that spiritual connection available 24/7, and to be of spiritual service with that connection 24/7. And there is a real movement to no longer suppress this. And I think that this generation that was born from like 1960 to I think 1964, maybe a little bit later than that, I'd have to do the math, but this Chiron and Pisces generation, I think it's 6 years actually, this Chiron and Pisces generation is really, they're essential right now for what's taking place, because what's happening on a collective level at times is anything but spiritual. It's material to the point of depression and rage. So you guys are like, it's kind of, think of this. Think of it's late in the game, and there is in hockey. Let's use hockey because hockey is water. It's frozen water, right? So let's use hockey. Right. For you guys are like the third line, and you're coming in late in the game. You're refreshed, and you are ready to do what you need to do in order to facilitate your purpose. So you're like the reserves that are coming off the bench now to help the rest of us deal with a spiritual crisis that is now taking place here on this planet. And the way that this gets fleshed out is that it is on a personal level. And when we look at your Chiron, it's sitting right in between, almost the midpoint in that yod between Saturn and Jupiter. So your Chiron is like it's like a station. It's like they have these stations for power plants. You have the major power plant, then you have these little terminal stations along the way, which repeater stations, which push the energy further. So Chiron is the mediating influence in your chart between Saturn and Jupiter. So in order for you to really bring Saturn and Jupiter together, you need to focus on your Chiron. And so that's a very personal relationship to your own spirituality and sharing that. Sometimes people that are raised in traditional religious households wind up having visionary experiences as a child, and they're told, they tell their parents, hey, I just saw a lady with wings flying around the living room, and child, that's the devil. You don't want to, shut your eyes, or whatever that thing is. Or sometimes it can be leaving one's faith because their faith has become too narrow and too judgmental, and that doesn't fit with this Chiron and Pisces energy, which wants to love and embrace and accept and be compassionate towards everyone. So your Chiron is the mediating influence between Saturn and Jupiter in your chart. So I think that's actually bodes well, because your Jupiter is hidden. It's in the 12th house. And sometimes it's hard to get in touch with that Jupiter, although it is dancing with that Sun-Pluto conjunction down there as part of that yod. So it's for you, it would be easier in some ways than for some other people if that Jupiter in Aries was more inert or had less of an angle to be expressed. With that Saturn in Aquarius in the 11th house, that's where your life work is. Your life work is as far as Saturn goes, is to create networks, is to create groups and organizations that are very Aquarian, because you've got.
How come I'm so bad at that? I'm just really like I have it seems like my Saturn and my work is just the most stunted of anything in my chart.
I think that's where you have to get into Chiron, because Chiron is almost at the midpoint between Saturn and Jupiter in Aries. Jupiter in Aries is really pioneering. Jupiter in Aries, kicks ass. It is very adventurous and is deeply invested in this aspect of will. And I think with your Chiron and Pisces, as it relates to the Saturn piece and Aquarius, is that if you can find more ways in order to express your own individual relationship with God or spirituality in a more, because it is in the 11th house, almost not the 12th, but it is in the 11th house, in a more public setting, that it will somehow be this mediating influence between Jupiter and Saturn, bringing the two of them together. And I think it's really good. So what does that mean for you personally? Well, what it would mean for you personally, it would be to take more of a risk on a personal level / spiritual level in places like message boards, or in places like what you're doing right now, calling into this radio show, which is an 11th house experience, and exploring this piece about who you are. You need to flesh this out. I use the word flesh because flesh is of the body, not necessarily of the spirit. You need to flesh this out in order to fulfill your chironic mission in life. So that's a personal choice for you. You've got to find a creative way to be upfront with what you believe in and how you feel, and not from a dogmatic perspective, because Pisces is not dogmatic. That would be more along the lines of Sagittarius. More along the lines of encouraging and compassionate and demonstrating faith in your own way. And that's an 11th house.
Okay. I'm sorry to interrupt, but this just brought me to an idea, because I have a real spiritual relationship with food and plants.
Okay.
And I have a friend. Well, I actually went through cancer, uterine or endometrial cancer, that was the size of an eggplant about 3 years ago, and it was stage 1, grade 1A. And I'm in a medical journal, and they just don't understand why. But to me, it's no mystery, because I have complete faith in the way that I eat and the foods that I eat. Okay. And I have a friend right now who has stage 4 pancreatic cancer, who I put her on the alkaline diet, and they're like, well, her tumors, we don't expect them to shrink because they're gelatinous protein, and they shrank.
Great.
They're like, the chemo wouldn't affect that, but so they don't understand. And to me, it's like my faith is in the food that she's eating.
So
she's eating all organic, alkaline diet.
Let's go to your 4th house, the house of food and nurturing. Cancer. What's in the 4th house? Your true node, right?
Right.
Where you need to be. What degree is your true node at? Your degree of the true node is at 18 Cancer. What's it doing? It's trining your Chiron. You have a grand water trine with the true node and Neptune and Chiron. So I would say that you've just unlocked a really big piece for yourself by making this connection.
Wow. Okay, that's really interesting. I never actually put those two together, or probably never would have.
Well, that's why they
say,
Jackie. That's
Well, I am always impressed, and I am very impressed right now. That is pretty amazing.
Well, this is an experience of mutuality. It doesn't happen in a vacuum. I do readings for people sometimes where I just talk into a computer, and those are very interesting readings in some ways, but there's something very dynamic that takes place when two people are, doing this, because you're part of the experience too, right? So, So there you go. Is that cool? Did you get something out of this?
Yeah. Oh, I certainly did. Thank you very much. I'm blown away, actually.
Okay,
very blown away.
So go into the chat room and then drop your address in there, because when all hell breaks loose, we're going to go to your house because you're close to Warren Buffett.
Well, he might be somewhere else by that time. So
That's true.
If there is only one of him, I've never seen him actually. So
if there is only one of this is spoken like a true true person with Moon and Gemini. Thank you for that comment. I appreciate
that. Well, thank you very much. I really appreciate it.
Okay, Jackie. Have a great day.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. All right. Jackie from Nebraska. Let's go to the 724. Hello there.
Hi.
Hi. Hello.
Hello, how are you?
Hey, I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
Good, good. What's your name?
I'm doing good. My name's Carol.
Hi, Carol. Where are you calling from?
I'm calling from Mercer, Pennsylvania.
Mercer, Pennsylvania. Okay. So, have you heard the show before, Carol, or is this your first time?
I've heard the show.
Okay, great. Have you called in before?
I don't believe so, no.
All right, great. All right, so we've established all these milestones in our lives together. What's your birthday, and where do you want to go? What do you want to talk about here?
My birthday is 9/26/1960.
Okay. All right, 26. You are 4 days older than I'm 4 days older than you.
Oh.
So respect your elders. All right. What time were you born?
I was born at 3:20 in the morning.
And where was that?
In Sharon, Pennsylvania.
SHRON?
Yes.
A lot of Sharons.
Yes.
I didn't know that name was so popular.
Oh.
My aunt's name was Sharon.
Oh.
It's a little Robert Fumes trivia. Okay, here we go. Where are you? Okay, I've got you at Leo on the ascendant, and Sun in, obviously, Libra, and then Moon in Sagittarius. Is that right?
I don't know.
Okay, well, based on what the time you gave me, and my software is humming today, so we're all good. We're tight. That's
okay.
who you are. You've got Sun in Libra, and that's 3 degrees Leo ascendant, and that's at 16 degrees, and then Moon in Sagittarius. You have a nice Moon ascendant trine. That's actually a very positive trine.
Oh, good.
What would you like to know about your chart or your life? Or
I'd like to know if my finances are going to pick up, but I don't know if you'll be able to tell me that.
Yes.
Pardon me?
They will. They will pick up. And
they will pick up?
Yeah. It's going to take a little bit. All right.
Okay.
So the key word here is patience.
Pardon me?
Patience.
Okay. I'm having.
Okay. So here's what's going on in your chart right now. You've got Pluto sitting transit. Pluto's in the sky right now, right? And currently it's in the sign of Capricorn. You have Saturn in Capricorn at 11 degrees, which, by the way, is where my Saturn is. I have Saturn because we're born in 4 days, so our charts are very similar in some ways.
Okay.
So your Saturn is at 11 degrees Capricorn. Pluto is right on your Saturn right now. And the Pluto-Saturn transit is a very powerful transit. It is a life-changing transit. And for you, what I see around this, the first thing that Pluto-Saturn does is that it works your fear in some ways. There's a fear of mortality. There's a fear of death is what Pluto-Saturn conjunctions mean.
Okay.
And you're probably experiencing that on some level, wondering about your life, wondering about the meaning of life, will your life get better? A lot of times, it depends also, too, on what house Saturn is in. For you, your Saturn is in the 5th house, which rules children, which rules creativity and romance and the heart. So Pluto on top of your Saturn would do one of two things. It would cause you at first to feel a disillusionment about life, love, and purpose. Like what is there left to live for? What is there left to love for? Will I find something that has some form of meaning that keeps me going? If you have children, occasionally it can also mean that one of your children or perhaps a grandchild could be going through a very stressful or difficult period in time, and a time where essentially you can't do much either to help that person. So there would be, like you would say, well, if they only had $5,000, they'd be much better off right now, or I could help it. But there's generally an inability to do something along those lines. Now, here's the good part about this. The good part about this is that with Pluto and Saturn, you get to assassinate your fear. You get to kill your fear about all these things. And as a result of which, you get to have a more personal relationship with what I call the eternal now, and which is really being in the moment, right? Pluto and Saturn is saying be in the moment. Don't get ahead of the moment, because the answer with Pluto and Saturn is in the moment apart from your fear. Now, what's going to happen is that once Pluto moves off of Saturn, and this won't be until 2012 and 2013, when it gets up to 12, 13, 14 degrees, it's going to be moving into your 6th house. And two things will occur. One, you will have a rebirth in the type of work that you do. There will be a major shift in what you do in order to make money. And then the other piece is that it will begin to trine your true node. And your true node is in Virgo. It's in the 2nd house. It's at 15 degrees. The 2nd house is ruled by Taurus. So it's all about security and values and safety and all the things that go into that, like food, supplements, minerals, herbs, everything that helps keep us healthy and alive. That's all 2nd house material. And when Pluto is moving into your 6th house, it's moving into the house of health and healing and dharma and purpose. So I see you making a shift in terms of what you do for money, and being very supported, by the way, profoundly supported in a new path for yourself. And I think that's something to do with health and healing. And I don't know what you do for a living or what you've done for a living, but you have a profound impact on transforming people with Pluto in the 1st house at the end of the 1st and the beginning of the 2nd. Pluto in your chart sextiles Mars. So you have the ability to tap into a healing power. Mars in Cancer at 2 degrees is very, very nurturing, very magnetic also. And so you're going to be having a change in what you do and how you nurture and heal people. Now, sometimes this can be directly facilitated by being a hands-on healer, or doing things like massage therapy or acupuncture. Sometimes it can be along the lines of becoming an herbalist or dealing with food and nutrition, which is what the last caller, Jackie, was talking about. Sometimes it could be along the lines of helping people live in healthier spaces, like being involved in making a home kind of atmospherically and elementally as pure as possible. That would be introducing really high-quality water filters, air filters into the home, feng shui, organic gardening. Sometimes it can actually also be along the lines of buying and selling homes, because we have a strong emphasis here in the house of real estate with the true node in the 2nd house. You have a period of about 1 year to gain knowledge, okay? Because this is important. Because when Pluto finally makes that shift onto the edges of your 5th house and into your 6th house, you're going to need that knowledge for the next phase. Because when Pluto is in the 6th house, you've got a whole new dharma. You've got a whole new career path waiting for you. So you need, and I know this is not answering your immediate need for finances, and I apologize for that if I'm not giving you what you want to hear, but I'm giving you a longer-term approach so that your finances can sustain you over the course of the next 15 years of your life. Because I I feel like you're about to enter into your work in a way that you've never done before. So in terms of right now, here and now, finances, I think that the key for you, again, we go to the second house, we go to where the true note is work. I hate to say this, but it's work, and it's not necessarily glamorous work. Virgo is very good at picking up part-time jobs, work on the side. Do you do anything with accounting or bookkeeping?
No, I don't right now.
Okay. Is that a skill you think that you could handle without being bored to death or feeling like you're boxed in?
Probably, yes.
Okay. So one of the things that I would get you to think about is to learn a skill like this, because the true note in Virgo is all about details, and it's all about service as well. And in the second house, it's really fundamental. And bookkeeping and accounting are skills that don't ever really go away. There's always people looking for somebody along those lines. If it's not that, if you don't want to necessarily, re-rack your career in that direction, then certainly anything along the healing art side that I was talking about should be looked at. But somewhere between now and then, you've got to pick up a part-time or work on the side, maybe 2 or 3 things that are going to help you get through. I'm afraid, and I know it's a pain in the butt at the age of 52, that you're going to have to multitask a bit. But I think the rewards are worth it. If you find that one thing that you can spend the next year of your life really trying to ground some knowledge with and getting either certified or getting enough deep knowledge so that you can make this career shift and being more involved in making people's lives better from a healing perspective. Is this making any sense?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, it is.
Okay. All right. For some reason, all right, this sounds really weird. Every now and then I get things that pop into my head. It's sort of like, the guides are, knocking at my door. I just saw a C's candy factory and a C's candy store. Is there a C's candy by where you live at all?
I don't think so. I don't know. I mean, there might be the outlets. I don't know.
You're in Hershey country, aren't you?
Yes.
Look for something related to chocolate. Look for something related to chocolate, either on a factory or retail outlet. I got candy. I got chocolate. But it was C's. C's. So maybe it's a play on words. Maybe I'm seeing chocolate, right? So look into that, because I think that there's something there for you. It is not. I don't think it's the job that's going to be your holy grail, but I think it's an immediate answer to your money. Okay.
Okay.
Meanwhile, go get that novel. All right.
Okay, I'll try that. Okay. That sounds good.
All right. Well, listen, thanks for calling in. And as always, September will be a good month for you. So point your ship towards September.
All right. Thank you so very much.
Okay. Bye-bye now.
Bye.
All right. Let's go to the 773 area code. Hello there.
Hi, Robert. This is Mary Lee. I'm the Eclipse birthday girl.
How are you?
Well, I don't know. There's so much going on in this chart. I'm a little bit worried about it, actually. I'm going to have that eclipse on my birthday, and I'm pretty sure you have my chart.
I would not assume, because I have to run through tons of charts. Let's do your chart again, just to make sure.
May 24th, 1945, 4:38 p.m. Wartime. So it should come up 2240 Libra rising.
May 24th, 1945. I'm sorry, what was the time again? It was
4:38 p.m.
4:38 p.m.
Wartime.
Wartime. And where was it?
Chicago, Illinois.
Chicago, Illinois. I do remember your chart.
Yeah, it's so much fun. How could one forget it?
Let's see. I just want to make sure we're in the right zone here. Okay. It was PM, wasn't it?
Correct. 21 Libra rising.
Yeah, I got my AM and PM mixed up here. Let's just go through this now.
Boy, the Saturn-Moon conjunction has not been fun.
Yeah, I was talking a little about the Saturn-Moon conjunction at the start of the show. Did you hear that?
I certainly did. And then I've had Pluto opposing my Saturn nodes out of that third, ninth house. And now the little eclipse is going to be not so nice to me, I don't think.
Well, look, one of the things that we have to kind of put aside is fear. Okay, I think, we all have these moments of trepidation, and we think we know what could or might happen. And in a lot of ways, it's kind of hedging our bets. It's like we're supplicating, negative deities through fear. It's like we pay homage to the negative deities at the altar of fear. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with having a sense of respect and sobriety for the moment. But I also think that if we go too far, we will miss something. And I'll give you just an example from my life. When I was 28 years old, I was about to go through my Saturn return. And at that time, that was in 1988. And the information in astrology at that time was really quite old school. And the Saturn return was looked upon as this incredibly malefic and evil kind of thing. This like terrible thing that happens to you for 2 years of your life. This was the indoctrination that I was getting. And maybe I was interpreting it because my Saturn is in Capricorn and in the second house anyway. So I'd probably have some kind of filter on that. But what happened is that I was so concerned with how bad it was going to be that I didn't really understand how strong and how empowering it could also be. Now, that I'm not saying that the eclipse will be a strong and empowering thing for you, but I do believe that it has potential for you to have a sense of clarity and ending for you on any kind of emotional entanglements that have kept you from being right here in the now. That's my sense about this. And if you're willing to die to those things, if you're willing to sacrifice the past, then I think that this eclipse can be very, very liberating for you. But when we do that, when we let go of the past, there's a part of us that dies. There's a part of us that dies. My ex-wife, her mother passed away at a young age. She had ALS, which is a terrible disease. And my ex-wife was involved in the caretaking of her as a result of that. And my ex-wife was quite young. She shouldn't have gone through that, but she did. She has, by the way, the Saturn-Moon conjunction in her chart as well. And what happened is when I met her, I got to know her and I got to experience how she dealt with consciously and unconsciously the grief and the trauma. And one of the things that she did was that she continued to hold on to the image of her mother in a very painful way. And it was a way that was sort of buttressed and exacerbated by guilt, that she could not have done enough, or she didn't do enough, or she didn't have enough patience, right? And this guilt was a way of keeping her mother alive, or the memory of her mother alive. It was a strange way of honoring her mother because she didn't have any other context or any other alternatives in order to lovingly and compassionately honoring her mother. By letting go of the guilt that she placed upon herself, she would then let go of a particular image of her mother, which was really burned into her memory via the trauma. So I'm sharing this with you because ultimately she did do that. and she did it in her own way. She has a different relationship to her mother's passing and her relationship to her mom and what it was like for her. I'm just sharing this with you because it's anecdotal, and it might have some relevance in your life with that Scorpio moon in the first house, because the Scorpio moon is a very hard time of letting go.
That's really very interesting, because someone else asked me what happened in 1998 on August 28th, and it had something to do with that same cycle of eclipses, and that's exactly when my mother died, that very day.
Interesting.
So that could very well be exactly what you're saying.
Here you're being presented with an opportunity, I think, to let go of something around that. Of course, the moon is the mother, something around the mother, and something around your own mortality, too. Because, at a certain point in time, this begins to creep into play into everybody's life, more so as we, advance through the years. So I would not be afraid of this eclipse. I would, my advice to you, it would be to be respectful of the energy and to be open and to be humble during the time, and to say, I'm open to learning about what I need to understand through this, and I'm willing to do so without fear. So that would be my advice to you. And this is just my own intuitive piece, Mary. I think it can be very profound and enlightening and liberating for you.
Well, thank you very much, Robert, because I've lost a lot of sleep worrying about this, I'll tell you.
Well, worrying is not going to make the event better. Like I said, we supplicate the gods of fear with worry. This is what we do. And we all do it. We think, and I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing, because what we don't want to do is we don't necessarily want to take the moment for granted. We don't want to take the upcoming moments for granted, right? But we sometimes go too far, and we go into fear, and fear becomes our way of somehow hedging our bets against something really terrible happening with us or to us.
Yeah.
And so replace fear with respect, and you will have a much different relationship with the days to come.
I think you're right. I think maybe that Saturn conjunct the moon has brought all this to pass, too. It's been a very depressing time, and I'm never depressed.
Yeah, you can't really, when I had Saturn on my moon last year, when I was in Libra, boy, I tell you, that was an intense time for me, and it's doubly intense for you, obviously, because you have moon in Scorpio, and it's in the first house. And
it's really rough.
I can only imagine what this is like for you. The one thing I know about the Scorpio moon is the desire. It is one of the most powerful moons in terms of desire that there is. And Saturn on top of your moon is also tempering your desire. It's helping you deal with fear. That's actually not a bad thing in some ways with the Scorpio moon. Once Saturn crosses that moon again, and this is just in a few weeks, right, Mary? This is like, 7 to 8 weeks from now, because Saturn's getting ready to move forward again. But once you cross that moon, you're going to have a wholly different relationship with your emotions. And I see this as a refinement of the Scorpio moon in your first house, that there will be new desires, a new level of magnetism, and a new level of being to attract what you want and what you need, and people not being afraid or scared of your emotional intensity. Think of this as being kind of in some ways, I wouldn't say going from positive or negative current to positive current, but something along those lines where you're sort of redirecting the energy of that moon through Saturn. It's a 28-year cycle. 28-year cycle of that Saturn coming across the moon. So it's an emotional reset for you. And when it's in Scorpio, there's no middle ground, there's no gray. It's black and white, it's pure, and there's a sense of finality in some ways with the Scorpio moon. But don't fear it, respect it, and allow it to show you what you need, and give thanks, and allow it to move forward and have a new 28-year cycle in terms of how you relate emotionally.
Well, thank you very much, Robert. And I must say your show is the best.
All right. Well, thank you very much, Mary Lee, and we'll catch you somewhere after the eclipse. Okay.
Okay. Thanks so much.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Blessings to you.
Blessings back.
I must say your show is.
Okay, so that's Mary Lee, and it is now 1:30 here in South Central Texas. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'm Robert Phoenix. I'm your host. And what I want to do is I'm going to take a little bit of a break here. I'm going to play a little more music, and then when I come back, I'm going to get into something that is, I think, very relevant as it relates to, well, I guess we should talk about the eclipse a little bit, maybe when I get back to, because I haven't really talked about it. But I also want to talk about, I want to read you a piece. It's very important, and it relates to what's happening with the upcoming Grand Water Trine. So what do I want to play here? Let's see. You guys want to hear some whales? Should we hear some whales? Let's listen to some whales. Speaking of water, let's listen to 3 minutes and 22 seconds of whales. Here we go, whales. All right, so that was great whales of the Pacific Ocean. Interesting sounds, aren't they? So let's see. We're going to talk about the eclipse here, and we're going to talk about the grand water trine. The eclipse is taking place on the 24th, 25th. It is a prenumbral eclipse. It is in the sign of Sagittarius. It's right around 14, 15, 16 degrees Sagittarius. So it's just a little bit earlier because the moon, let's see, the sun on Friday will be at 3 degrees. So it's going to be in the first 10 degrees of Sagittarius. It is a sequence of eclipses. There is another eclipse taking place after this. It's going to be, I believe, the solar and the lunar. This is from Wikipedia here. I believe we've got, how many eclipses do we have this year? Let's see. Let's see, I'm just trying to figure this out. I think we have 5. We have 5, and this will be the third, and then the second 2 will be the lunar and the solar eclipse taking place, I believe, in November. So this is happening on Friday. It's going to be visible through most of North America, but the real sort of visible part of the moonrise is going to take place really far up in North America, going into Canada, into the tundra. So we'll see it here in North America, South America, but the most potent part of it will be in the far northern hemisphere. So our friends in Vancouver will have an ability to tap into this. Now it's going to be in Sagittarius, so it's going to be interesting. And one of the things that we're dealing with right now is we're dealing with the whole issue around freedom and rights. So we could be looking at the eclipsing of freedom and rights and the enactment of yet another executive order, or perhaps even a city, county, or municipality under martial law. That could be another example of this, or some right revoked. So keep that in the back of your mind over the next few days. On Friday, we'll be into the eclipse mode, and we're going to have Courtney Brown live on the show. So we'll be getting real-time data back from the eclipse. And remember, eclipses also impact us days after they have actually crossed our path. So it may not happen in real time, but we may see some phenomena and some activity in the days that follow the eclipse as it relates to some of the subjects that I was talking about. So speaking of rights and freedom, I wanted to read this to you. This is from The Guardian, which is a UK publication. And this has to do with Portland, Oregon rejecting fluoridation. We had Philip Proffer on about 3 weeks ago now on a Friday, and we were talking about water, and he's from Portland, and we briefly touched on the fluoridation issue. He said that they were getting ready to vote on it there in Portland, and this is what happened. The mayor of Oregon has conceded defeat in an effort to add fluoride to the city's drinking water. With more than 80% of the expected ballots counted late Tuesday night, the Multnomah County election website showed the fluoride proposal failing 60% to 40%. That's a pretty big margin. Mayor Charlie Hale supported fluoridation and said the measure lost despite my own yes vote. Too bad, Charlie. Sorry, Charlie. That's sure disappointing, but I accept the will of the voters, he said in a statement. Fluoridation foes were delighted. We are very excited with how the numbers look, said Kelly Barnes, the anti-fluoride group Clean Water Portland. If the early returns hold up, then Portlanders spoke out to value our clean water and asked for better solutions for our kids. This is a very Cancerian thing, by the way. Kids. Voters in Portland twice rejected fluoridation before approving it in 1978. That plan was overturned 2 years later before any fluoride was ever added to the water. The city council voted last year to add fluoride to the water supply that serves 900,000 people, but opponents quickly garnered enough signatures to force a vote on the subject. Don't you just hate that shit? Not the part where they go out and make the votes, but a few people on the city council just get to vote on something. That is such, I'm sorry, it's bullshit. You get 5 people, 4 people, 6 people, whatever, 7 people, whatever it is, and they just say, yeah, we're going to vote for this. Well, good for the people of Portland. Rejection of the proposal would keep Portland the largest U.S. city without fluoride in the water or with plans to add it. San Jose, California, which is larger than Portland, has been working to add fluoride to its water supply. Hey, you know, I grew up in San Jose, so I drank unfluoridated water. No wonder I'm so fucking psychic. That's what it is. My pineal gland rocks. I didn't know that. Interesting. I grew up in San Jose, non-fluoridated water. Damn. Voters had weeks to make their choice in the mail ballot election. By Tuesday, it was too late to rely on the postman. So drop boxes were placed across the city to accommodate those who waited until the final day. We were still getting ballots from the drop sites close to 8 p.m., said Eric Sample, a Multnomah County election spokesman. I guess Eric Sample provided a sample vote or a sample ballot. That meant a pretty darn long night of vote counting that likely would stretch into Wednesday, he said. Supporters and opponents of fluoridation raised hundreds of thousands of dollars and traded accusations of science stealing and shoddy science in an election that has been the city's most contentious of the 21st century. A sampling of voters dropping off ballots earlier Tuesday in rainy Pioneer Courthouse Square found people opposed to fluoridation. People don't like change. When in doubt, say no, said Tracy Rauscher, a native Portlander, who, like a native Portlander, did not use an umbrella. Portland's drinking water already contains naturally occurring fluoride, though not at levels considered to be effective at fighting cavities. Backers of fluoridation say adding more of it to the water is a safe, effective, affordable way to improve the health of low-income children whose parents don't stress proper nutrition and dental hygiene. Yes. Although most Americans, opponents describe fluoride as a chemical that will ruin the city's pristine water supply, and they argue that adding it would violate an individual's right to consent to medication. It's very true. Although most Americans drink water treated with fluoride, it has long been a contentious topic. In the 1950s, fluoridation was feared as a communist plot. Today, people worry that its effect on the body has not been sufficiently examined. I don't want chemicals in my water, said Sarah Lazaro. After voting Tuesday, I know that there are really no known health risks with it, but there's a lot of things we find out later in life really do have health risks. The issue reappeared on Portland's radar late last summer when health organizations had quietly lobbied the city council for a year, persuaded the panel to unanimously approve fluoridation by March 2014. So you have these these health organizations. Basically, the health organizations are front groups for people like, Reynolds Aluminum and things like that, Kaiser Aluminum. Days before the vote, 227 people, most of them opponents, signed up to testify at a public hearing that lasted 6.5 hours. When their objections weren't heeded, they quickly gathered tens of thousands of signatures to force Tuesday's vote. Right on. Power to the people. Excellent. It's interesting. There's no comments allowed for this. Good for you, Portland. Good for you. This is all part of the oncoming water trine. Now, listen, there's going to be people that are reading this, that are hearing about this, that are going to be empowered by this Portland experience, and they will want their water either unfluoridated and unplugged from the giant fluoride mechanism known as the aluminum waste industry or aluminum byproduct industry, or they will stand and keep their water from being fluoridated. So this is a victory. This is a victory for local government. Good for you, Portland. Don't ever let it happen again. Don't let these people try to muscle their way into your lives and into your pineal glands. Keep them safe. Let's have a round of applause for the people of Portland, Oregon. All right, anybody else there on the line? Yes, there is. Somebody from the 612 area code. Let's find out who they are and if they want to have their chart looked at. Hello there.
Hello. Hello, this is Mary calling in.
Hi, Mary.
I would love if you would look at my chart. My life has been kind of crazy, and I'm hoping it would be able to give me some insight.
You mean somebody has a crazy life in the 21st century?
Yeah, let me tell you, mine's been crazier than normal lately, it seems.
Okay, well, let's check you out. Let's go to the charts here. Mary, when is your birthday?
6/8/65.
6/8/65. Okay. And what year?
1965.
I'm sorry. What time?
4:44 a.m.
4:44 a.m. 4:44. That's auspicious. And where was that?
Minneapolis, Minnesota.
Okay. All right. I got you as a big fat stellium in Gemini and then ascendant with Gemini, right?
Yep.
Okay. Well, you got that. You got a really like uber T-square in your chart. I don't think I've ever seen anything quite like this before. But T-squares are not bad. They're set up for people that want to do a lot of heavy growth in one lifetime. And I think people that have powerful T-squares are here to, really test themselves against this third dimensional hologram that we're all living in. So what is the crazy part, and how can I kind of work with you on the crazy part?
I think it's for me that I was always just going to be a stay-at-home mom, but I had this job that was very part-time job this last year that came upon me. It was very demanding, but it was very fulfilling, and that is ending due to the contract ending with the county through the agency I work for. So now, even though I don't have to have a job, it is helpful if I do have a job, but I feel kind of lost with not having anything there, and I'm trying to figure out, should I just take this time off and chill, or should I be focusing on another job? And I think just the unknown is kind of unsettling for me. There's a couple jobs I could apply for. I don't know if it's a good time. So I don't know if my chart had any cycle or something that would give me some guidance.
Do you have children at present?
Yes, I do.
And how old are they?
6, 9, 12, and 15.
Okay, so one of the things that I see here as kind of a major transition for you is where Jupiter is just on a big cycle, getting ready to complete a pretty big cycle through your first house. And let me just go there really quickly and see where Jupiter is. Jupiter is at, here we go, right there, 23rd. So Jupiter is at 21, 22, so 22 degrees. So Jupiter has just completed you had your Jupiter return, and then you've got Jupiter. So Jupiter has just moved into your second house. Now, when the Jupiter cycle for you, so let's see, when did you start this job? How long ago did you begin this job?
I started, I think when that was, a year ago March.
A year ago?
Last March. So like a year and a half almost.
Okay, so that's when Jupiter was just going into Gemini. Let's just look at that, okay? So let's go back to 2012 and a year ago March. So let's see, a year ago March. Let's see. Actually, at that point in time, Jupiter was in Taurus, and it hits Gemini in June. So what happened, if we look at the Jupiter cycle, it started off in your 12th house. And at that time, it was trining your Uranus and Pluto in the 5th house, and to some degree, your Mars, but mostly Uranus and Pluto. So this was a way for you to make some money and sort of kickstart things. But from June, which at 3 degrees, from June to June. Well, so I would say that the bulk of this will have been from June, even though you started in March. Well, the bulk of this would have been from June to June, because March, April, May. By the time you hit June, you probably would have sort of had your learning curve, your systems. You would have made some connections and some bonds in that job by that time. So this is going to really just pretty much encompass your entire Jupiter cycle: Jupiter return, Jupiter Mercury, Jupiter the true node, Jupiter Sun. So a lot of this job had to do, Mary, with your own sort of sense of self and your own sort of sense of accomplishment and making some money and feeling like you can actually make things happen. And it would have really would have expanded your identity, and it would have given you more of a sense of purpose, and maybe even picked up a new skill along the way. Okay, this Jupiter cycle is over now, and Jupiter is now moving into your 2nd house. And what you have in your 2nd house is you have Venus in Cancer. And Venus in Cancer is much more, I hate to say this, more along the lines of being a homebody and a mom. Okay?
Okay.
And I think that what you to honor Jupiter theoretically, or the transit, I would not be in a hurry to make something happen. I would allow this Jupiter cycle to end. I would drop back into being a mom for a while, because there's something here with the Jupiter-Venus conjunction which is interesting. And anytime don't worry about the money, because when Jupiter transits through the 2nd house, you'll have plenty of money. You'll have plenty of money, you'll have plenty of support, whatever that is. Don't worry about it. It allows you to kind of re-enter the mom phase, the home phase. But something comes out of this, though, because you're going to have a Jupiter-Venus conjunction, and that happens in June and July. And there could be an opportunity that results where you can actually work from home a couple hours a day if you want to do that. But there's something very graceful, and it's like the universe is saying, okay, you did that, congratulations. Something new's coming. Just sit back, relax, take it in, be with your kids, get into your garden, and wait for the next thing. And the next thing is coming. And
that's what I needed to hear. I needed to hear, what should I be doing in this phase, you know?
Anything. Just let it go. It's okay. Because something does come, and it's something quite rewarding, and it allows you to stay in the home if that means anything to you. Maybe you wanted to get out of the home. Maybe that Jupiter cycle was important to you, and it was, I think. But now,
I'd like to be. Even my last job let me be in the home for probably 70% of it, and so that was very nice. Although it did interfere with the home life, it was nice that I could really set my own schedule, and that is my fear of looking at something else, not having that schedule be set. And so I would really appreciate something that would allow me to stay in the home. There you go.
It's coming. So just have faith, step back, give thanks to the Jupiter cycle, the connections, the experience, the skill sets. Something will come out of this, and it will be more on your own terms than even that it was before. Okay?
Perfect. Well, that's what I need to hear. I appreciate that so much.
Okay.
And when you were talking about the fluoridation, I wanted to say that I had a friend who went out of college and went on to be a scientist, and right away her main job was studying to see how fluoride affects Alzheimer's. And you see, as the Alzheimer's thing starts kicking up, more and more, I wonder, as we begin more fluoridating more and more water, is there connection? And as I heard that, I thought, I wish I was still in contact with it, because I would love to see what their research was finding. And they do say even aluminum is, aluminum foil. If you do a lot of cooking in aluminum foil, all those things, those metals get in you. And so I think that is something that we should think about when we're looking at that fluoridation? What is it? Where does it come from? What does it do other than just protect our teeth?
Right. There's plenty of research that have been done by people in, alternative research fields who hold degrees in science. It's funny, we think of science as being the final arbiter on reality, but there are so many divergent views, even within the scientific community, about a number of different things, some of which are based on funding or predisposition or whatever they are. But there's a lot of information out there that suggests that Alzheimer's does have a relationship with aluminum. And, I think Alzheimer's is a fairly kind of recent phenomena. And, of course, we've been having fluoridation and the rise of aluminum-based products in our homes over the sort of the latter part of the 20th century. Just real quick, one of the things that I've just started doing over the last couple of days is I started my own kind of chelating program, and I found for people out there who are interested in trying to get some of the metals out of your body, I found an interesting combination on the internet of fluids. They are distilled water, lemon, and chlorophyll. So I've been mixing those together every morning when I get up. The first thing I do is I drink this stuff. It doesn't taste bad. It's okay. But supposedly it's pretty good at getting out metals from the body. So I just wanted to pass that on to people. If you're interested in that, look it up, lemon juice, chlorophyll, liquid chlorophyll, and distilled water.
And that's a nice relatively low-cost home remedy rather than here's a pill that you can use. It's using more natural things to get a more natural body.
Absolutely.
So I appreciate that.
And none of those things are bad for you. I mean, come on, chlorophyll is good for you, lemon's good for you. There are people that drink distilled water to cleanse and purify their system. So anyway, listen, have a great day, and just kick back and enjoy your time as Jupiter moves to your second house, okay?
Thank you so much. Have a great day.
All right, take care.
You too. Bye-bye.
Mary. Okay, so there we go. Today's a merry day. It's a merry day. Let's go quickly to the 951. I only have 2 minutes left. Hello there.
Hi. Thank you for taking my call. My name's Lori. My birthday, you want my birthday?
Yeah, Lori, let me do this. Let me just sign off with everybody now because I only have 2 minutes left in the show. So
okay.
Let me sign off with people, and then what I'll do is I'll just come back and I'll work with you, and the live stream will end. This will be part of the podcast. So this will be the last reading of the day. I want to thank everybody for calling in and listening to the show, and all the great callers that we've had. I mean, it was really, I think, a nice cross-section of people looking to see what's happening. And be sure to tune in on Friday when I will have Dr. Courtney Brown and James Gilliland, and we'll be talking about Earth changes in a pretty high-level fashion. So don't miss that. Use your head and discern what's real, your heart, what's possible. It's Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix, and let's get back to our caller. Okay, when is your birthday?
June 29th, 1960.
June 29th, 1960. Hey, it's a 1960 day. That's
4:16 a.m.
June 29th, 1960. Hold on, let me get into the program, okay? And what time was that?
4:16 in the morning, a.m.
Okay. And where was it?
Hazleton, Pennsylvania, Hazleton, PA.
Cableton?
Hazleton, Hazleton, PA.
Hazleton, PA. Can you spell that for me again? Because I'm not seeing it in Pennsylvania. One more time.
Hazleton, PA, Pennsylvania.
ZLE?
Yeah, Hazleton.
I juxtaposed the E and the L. All right, here we go. All right, there you are. You're Cancer, Venus in Cancer, Cancer rising. A lot of emotion in your chart. Very sensitive, super sensitive person. Not in a bad way though. Mercury also in Cancer, so you have a stellium in Cancer, and you have a Moon in Virgo, which also adds to the sensitivity, but grounds you though in a kind of a unique way. You've got a very nice grand trine in your chart, Earth trine with the Moon and Saturn and Mars. That also helps you keeps you quite grounded as well. What would you like to talk about or get into?
Career, I guess.
The one thing that you don't have is you don't have any air in your chart. You have absolutely no planets in air. And when you have a lot of earth and water, what you can tend to lack at times is some objectivity. So if you get down, air gives us objectivity. So if you get down and depressed sometimes, it can be a little bit hard to get out of that depression because of the lack of air. So what you want to do if you're feeling down and depressed is get outside, get some air, go for a bike ride, get some air in your face, go to a mall, mingle, walk around, look at people. You just need to circulate and be more in the airspace. Okay, so career, is that what you want to look into?
Yeah.
Okay, now with career, we look at the 6th house and we look at the 5th house. The 6th house gives us some clues as to kind of what we would be good at in some ways. And because the 6th house is Dharma on purpose. And then the 10th house is what we bring to the world as a particular vocation or expression of kind of who we are and what we're supposed to share on the world stage. And now you have Pisces in your 10th house, and you have Pisces on the midheaven. And people that have Pisces on the midheaven in the 10th house generally have a difficult time with this whole concept and notion of career because Pisces is so diffuse and diaphanous. It's hard to get a sense. It's hard to get a handle on quote unquote what you are supposed to do. Why am I here? I can do a lot of things. I'm drawn to this. I'm drawn to that. When I become interested in this thing, another thing comes in and grabs my attention. And but what I really want to do is I really want to save the world and help the world, but I don't really know how to do that. I'm just a single solitary person. I feel like there's a real purpose for me to fulfill. I know I've got a purpose. I know I've got a mission, but I just don't know how to make it happen. So that's the challenge with Pisces on the midheaven. Now Neptune is at 5 degrees, so it's conjunct your midheaven right now, and that's going to give you an even stronger pull to quote unquote fulfill your mission or to fulfill your purpose. And then as Neptune moves forward in 2014 and in 2015, it's going to actually cross over your midheaven, and it's going to be in your 10th house. It won't necessarily make it any easier, but the angle of Neptune to your sun in the 1st house will be very strong. So you're going to have a Sun trine Neptune experience with Neptune moving into your 10th. One of the things that you have in spades, I'll tell you right now, one of the things that you have in spades in your chart is compassion. You know, you have the ability to be compassionate, you have the ability to be empathetic, and the thing for you is that you're not. I'm gonna share this with you, and I hope this makes sense. Okay.
Yeah, it is so far.
You're not here. You're not here to have a career. Okay.
Really?
You're here. No, you're here to experience you. You are your career. All right. Anything that you do, it's more important to understand who you are and to express yourself than it is to have a quote-unquote career. And now I know that's hard because we live in a culture and a society where, you know, we are judged by the fruits of our labors, and the fruits of our labors usually have titles and career paths attached to them. And when we don't have those, we feel sort of left out, or like we're not part of the program, we're not part of the play. And for you, it's because of where your sun is at 7 degrees Cancer and Venus right next to your sun, it's more important for you to figure out who you are and what you do and something that's intrinsically yours versus a career path. Now, a career path can be entrepreneurial. A career path can also be in corporations. A career path can be in government. You know, a career path can be in research or whatever those things are. But I think for you, it's really about that Cancerian energy. Anything that you have to do that can nurture, love, feed, support, heal, touch, sow, create, anything that you do along those lines, those are areas in which you will unfold more of your own personal nature. And as you unfold your personal nature, like say for instance, here's a for instance. Let's say all you want to do is be a mom. All you wanted to do was to have a kid and to stay home and to, and I'm not saying this is you, but let's say it was. You would be able to have a garden, you were in love with your husband or your mate or whoever it was, and you worked on building and growing a life together. That's not a career. You know, that is an intrinsic expression of what an individual chooses to do. And I'm sharing this with you because this is kind of what we're talking about. It's about you being able to say, I'm going to do this. It may not necessarily be a career, but it's something you're interested in. It is something that helps grow and nurture and support and love and feed people, okay, feed people in some way.
That sounds like me.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
So, I mean, one of the things that you may want to do, and I'm just throwing this out there, right? Because the spiritual component cannot be disregarded. That's Neptune coming up in your 10th house. It's going to be there for a while. So you are going to have to make some kind of spiritual contribution to the world. But you do that through the expression of your own essence of who you are. So let's just say, for instance, you decided that you wanted to make organic chocolate hearts, right? Organic chocolate hearts. And you wanted to have a program for these organic chocolate hearts and send them out once a week to people in nursing homes or something like that, right? So you would now you would have this program, and you would set up like this little nonprofit, you know, which would be, you know, like adopt a senior or something like that, and each week this nice, really wonderful chocolate heart that you made with maybe cinnamon or nutmeg or whatever, these get delivered to like a certain senior center or something like that. Now you're engaging the Cancerian piece, which is making, baking, growing, nurturing, and you're reaching out because of where your sun is and where your Venus is. You're reaching out into the world, right? And you're giving people something that they can experience. It gives them a sense of being fed and nurtured, but it's also spiritual because, you know, there's love, there's compassion, there's hope. So thinking along these lines, you need, because obviously you are a cardinal person, you know, Cancer is a cardinal sign. It initiates. So you are an initiator. The challenge for you is to find a person who believes in you and wants to work with you. And if you can do that, then you've got everything that you need. So it's not about necessarily having a quote-unquote career. It's more about understanding who you are and expressing who you are. And if that manifests into a career, then so be it. And if you do that, you know, a lot of times there are hits and misses. Sometimes you hit it and sometimes you don't, you know. I mean, there are a lot of things that I've done in my life. For about 3 years in the 1990s, I sold electronic music from my home. And I loved the music, but as a career path, it wasn't very fulfilling. It took me a while to ultimately matriculate to what I'm doing. And you were in the same age group. You're born a little bit earlier than me. You've got that Pluto-Moon conjunction in your chart in the third house. Again, that's very Cancerian. It's very intense. You're quite psychic, and you need to trust that psychic ability of yours too. So I don't know if I'm giving you the exact answer that you want in terms of career, but I will tell you, the more that you focus on something that you just intrinsically want to do that helps and cares and nurtures and empathizes with people, then it will take off on its own accord, and then you can turn that into something that is career-based. You've got great aspects in your chart. You have a lot of really powerful trines. You've got some really good sextiles. You've got a Venus-Moon sextile. You've got a great heart. People like you. You have a Sun-Moon sextile. Nice balance between the masculine and feminine. You've got some really great tools to work with. You've got a Mars-Jupiter trine. You can be very lucky at times. You've got a Mars-Saturn trine. You can work hard. You've got all the tools. Mars trine Pluto, endurance, power, Mars trine Moon. You can be passionate. Passion, I think, is the key for you. Once you figure out what it is that you want to share and nurture and feed and be compassionate and empathize with people, bring the passion into play, and you'll have no problem. Now, here's one final piece. Jupiter's moving out of your 12th house, which is great because the 12th house is ruled by Pisces. And that's not necessarily going to help you with this vague sense of, I need something to do, I have to have something to do, I've got to fulfill my mission. You feel it, but you don't really know how to make it happen. Now, Jupiter's moving into Cancer in June, and when it does, it's going to cross your it's going to cross your ascendant, it's going to cross your sun, it's going to cross your Venus, it's going to park in your first house for the rest of the year. Grab that moment. Grab those moments. That's a real moment of rebirth and inspiration for you. So just by the transit itself, good things are coming your way, okay?
Okay. Thank you. That helped so much. I was feeling so down on myself, and that was wonderful. Thank you.
Well, good. The only thing that you want to watch out for when Jupiter comes into your first house, there's a tendency of feeling too good and sometimes overindulgence from a dietary level. So if you wind up making chocolates, try not to eat too many.
Okay.
All right?
Thank you so much. Great. Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And with that, if you're listening to the podcast, that is clearly the end of the show. And let's play some music and get out of here. Courtney Brown, James Gilliland on Friday. Don't miss it. I'm Robert Phoenix. You've been listening to Navigating the Astrological Matrix. I'll see you on Friday.
We are living in a computer-programmed reality, and the only clue we have to it is when some variable is changed and some alteration in our reality occurs. We would have the overwhelming impression that we were reliving the present, déjà vu, perhaps in precisely the same way, hearing the same words, saying the same words. I submit that these impressions are valid and significant, and I will even say this: such an impression is a clue that at some past time point a variable was changed, reprogrammed as it were, and that because of this an alternative world branched off.